Hello there, everyone. My name is Alex Sherrill. This is the Hzrd Podcast, episode number 2. How are you, everyone? I hope you've had a great day. I've had a pretty good day myself, getting a lot of things done. Man, making some lot of personal breakthroughs. Just working, writing, reading, getting fit, man, and going to the gym, man. Still skinny as hell, but we're making progress, growing as an individual and gaining tons of momentum. Mentioned in my last podcast my why of why I'm doing this in the first place. And as I've continued to read and write, done a lot of journaling the last month or so. And I've gotten to a point where, I have specific topics that I want to talk about, but I think that it's important to phrase all of them and have a background on all of them. As sort of a starting point for both myself and my audience as to what we're going to be talking about and the kind of things I want to discuss. So for this episode, it's going to be about media in general, the world landscape, and how impactful media really is. I personally look at the world from a variety of perspectives, and I try to do this every day. Being able to put yourself in other people's shoes and realize that they have other inputs through media, through relationships, through experiences that makes them the way that they are. We can look at it from a micro perspective. We can say, hey, why did that person in this specific situation make that specific choice? Why did they take that specific action? To the macro, why did that person or a group of people or the entire society, why did they make that collective decision? Was it power? Was there something actually chosen by the people? I believe that asking questions are an extremely important part of figuring out what you're going to be doing in a certain situation. You got to know everything until you can figure it out. I believe that hearing both sides of the story, no matter if I want to hear both sides or not, whether I agree with both sides or neither sides or either side, it doesn't matter. I'm willing to hear. I'm willing to listen. Getting all the information out is so important. It's like trying to solve a puzzle and you only poured out 200 of the 500 pieces. There's lots of missing, and where do you go from that if you don't have all the information? Get all the information you can and proceed. I think that in life you have to be balanced, a realistic and civilized version of yourself, as well as an outrageous and forward thinking and primal version of yourself, to harness the emotion and the chaos that is within either of us, in the emotion and chaos that is within all of us. I forgot to speak English there for a second. This range of realism and emotion is balance. It's logic versus emotion. Both have a place, but they need to be careful in how we use each. when you're looking at other people, you can keep this in mind. So often people act on their primal and their more emotion side instead of using their minds and really thinking and slowing down and making the logical choice. It also changes based on situation. Somebody might have made a choice or taken an action in a specific situation that they might not have made normally. Maybe something bad happened to them earlier in that day. Maybe you're flying down the freeway, you get in a little bit of traffic as for things slow down a little bit. This guy flips you off. Maybe he's not the kind of person who flips you off. Maybe he's had a really bad day. He's freaking out and he decided to take it out on you. Why would you take that personally? You shouldn't. That's what caused that reaction from him in the first place. That's the way you can look at it. Doesn't necessarily mean because he flipped you off that he's a bad dude. Always remember that. Just because somebody has done something, there's a lot of backstory that could make you realize why they made that action. You never know unless you experienced it. You'll never know unless you put some into their shoes. Now, how did I arrive at this worldview? I've studied people a lot. I was a communications major, studied business as well in college, graduated last year. And we talked a lot about media within communications and the relationship between media and the world. At a base, communication, let's say it's along two channels, the input and the output. Someone says something, I am putting an output. I am creating a signal. There's a lot of different ways to send the signal. It could be through language. In my example, the English language. Now, someone on the input, I'm on the output, someone on the input, if they don't speak English, they can't understand. It's just noise along that channel. Create a strong signal, Create a strong signal. That's part of what this podcast is. I'm creating my own signal. I'm putting my effort and my work out there. We talked about systems theory. We talked about mass media in general, which I will be touching on much more in this podcast. Talking about in groups and out groups. Intercultural communications, one of my favorite classes was intercultural communications. And the similarities of stories, depending on nothing else but their circumstances. There's a lot of people who look differently, who look the same. They all have very similar experiences. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you look like. We're all people. All people, I believe, were really just highly intelligent monkeys. Humans are animals. I talked about channeling that primal energy. Do that. It becomes increasingly difficult as our societies become more and more complex. And with every day, it becomes more and more complex. Every bit of information that keeps getting sent on the internet only further complexes our story. As I get older, I see the world as highly individualistic in one sense, but I also understand the collective version of all of it. However, I think as we grow in population, the best way to make a difference on everyone's lives is for everyone to focus on themselves. Now, to touch back into media, remember that there's always a difference between the craziness that you see on the screen and what is happening in your life right now. People so often, so often, honestly, myself included sometimes, but so often get sucked into headlines and seeing all of these things on the internet. Most of them are bad. People love bad, crazy things happening. You can't look away sometimes. And media really, it's about attention. How can I get someone to click? How can I get someone to watch my video? How can I get someone to give a shit about what I'm saying? That's what every media company is really asking themselves. They want to keep and control attention. And this goes from Fox News and CNN to every little private individual podcast like mine. Every single day, all of us are inundated with an abundance of information. You go on the internet, you go on Twitter, you go on any social media, you go on your email. It's just nonstop. Ba, 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 ba. My attention. What will control it next? Our attention spans, as a result of this, have become much lower. There's a reason that on TikTok and on Reels, short 10, 15-second videos, man, they're big a lot of times because they jump out, they grab your attention. They want you even more. They make you click on their profile. And as we have our phones, it's so much easier for all of this to reach us. The worst thing, and I do sometimes, I'm working on it. The worst thing you can do is look at your phone right away when you wake up because you're being inundated with music and videos and sounds and flashing lights and opinions and ideas and all sorts of craziness before you've even figured out what you think about the day. In the haze of the online world, with all the craziness happening, make sure to take a step back. You're not there. You might be watching a fight video. You might be worried. You're not there. You are okay. You are okay. It's true. You're in the present, wherever you are on earth, and don't let someone else, whether they said something stupid to you on Twitter or if they left a hater comment, why are you letting that person affect you? Step away from the media. Ideally, you're going to be surrounding yourself with more positive things that aren't going to be making you freak out. That's a whole nother discussion. Remember that on our phones, we're always being watched. Always. From our phones, our computers, everything's got a camera, everything has a microphone, everything is tracking the data. Have you ever looked on your iPhone settings and seen the tracking and data section? Turned off quite a few of that kind of stuff. There's companies where I trust them. There's other ones, man, I'm not helping them with my data. And it's true. Some, there's always something more. And to quote Tupac, things are never as simple as they seem. He didn't say that, but he did say this: don't believe everything you read. He said that at the end, I believe it's Can't See Me. Uh, Unbelievable song. The idea is that everything is more complex than it seems. It's like what I talked about at the beginning. The guy who flipped you off on the freeway. It's so simple to just be like, oh, he flipped me off. He's a bad person. You don't know what happened in that day. You don't know what happened outside of a 20-second video that went viral on YouTube or on Twitter or whatever. How do you know about the situation that led up to that video? If it's a fight, if it's a argument, if it's anything that is going to get you to click. You watch that 20 seconds and you have all sorts of ideas and thoughts about that video. Maybe it got clipped. Maybe there's a 60-second version and you only saw 48 seconds of it. And maybe they cut out the most important part. That's what media does. And everybody's always working on their agenda. This is why you cannot ever take just a headline. Like Tupac said, don't believe everything you read. I know I said that again, but it's so important, man. Like, there's no blanket answers for most issues and disagreements in life. Everything is so situational. Now, there's some things for sure. The sky is blue, gravity exists, but most things in life are not black and white. They're just not. Everything is so gray. Like I said, gravity exists. Drop that, it dropped. Gravity exists. But everything is so much more complex. Speaking of complex, the media landscape in general, man, it's similar to what I talked about. Everybody's getting fed narratives, all of us, all the time. Every headline, every email that you get, every video you watch, that specific person or that group is trying to make you think how they do. They're trying to entertain you. They're trying to have your attention. And often we choose things that we like to hear. So this is why I've challenged myself and others, listen to the guy that you don't like. Listen to the people that you don't agree with. You don't agree with them, but listen to them anyway. Because you might be able to figure out a way to, if you're gonna debate them, if you're gonna debate something, maybe you want to be able to know their side a little bit better. So many times people consume the negativity and they just eat it up. But you have to realize that, especially big media, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, they're all trying to get clicks, they're trying to get views, and they treat it as such. It's propaganda, it's fueling division and hate and negativity. And have you ever seen a positive thing show up on Fox News or CNN? It's always such and such people died, or mass shooting, or COVID cases, or blah, 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 blah. Something bad and make you scared. Don't be scared. The opinions we form are bolstered by media. They're bolstered by our phone. They're bolstered by every single time we log into anything. It's more input. And I continue to challenge. I said, listen to people you don't listen to the people that you disagree with. Because if you hear only what you know now, how are you ever going to grow? There's no way. But if you're reading new material and new things that will challenge you, and you're stepping away from the negative narratives, you might learn something. You might learn something by reading and expanding what you consume now. Now, I'll talk about, I mentioned Fox News and CNN. I want to point out media coverage spinning on politics. I don't, I do struggle and I hesitate to speak about politics necessarily and so black and white. I suppose what I'll say beforehand is that it doesn't matter who I voted for. It doesn't matter what I believe. Because at the end of the day, I don't necessarily identify as a specific party. I I think there's ways to approach um, politics. And it's a very idealistic way, but I think it's all part of the division. Blue versus red, Republican versus Democrat. Them, it's their fault, it's their fault. Oh, it's red man's fault. Orange man, excuse me. Man, it's everybody's fault. Everybody makes mistakes. So why is people who are calling them out only calling them out when they're Republican? The amount of stories that I've seen where in the last 4 years, 2016 to 2020, when Trump was president, where he would get called out as he should have for things. And now, have you watched the Joe Biden speech of our president in the last 6 months? You can't understand him, and everybody's apologizing. It's very apologetic for his mistakes, and we're the fact checkers. I saw so many articles. Here's Trump gave a speech last night. Um, Here is a list of 75 things that he said that were false. He said a lot of untruths, but so has Biden, and nobody calls it out. What this all leads me to is my idea, very important, that discourse wins, freedom wins. Because at the end of the day, the patterns and the history tells me that this is a freedom versus tyranny battle. And this battle between freedom and tyranny is going to be waged through media, through video, through spoken word, through Twitter, through social media. The debates, the future will unfold so vividly right in front of our faces, thanks to our phones, thanks to our computers, thanks to media. My question is always, when somebody tells me something, so where's the data, man? Where's the hard facts? Why did they make that decision? It's all about the why. Did a whole podcast, my whole first podcast on my why. Why is very important. Now, not everything, not every single headline you see, not every little story is worth even asking these questions. You have to know what's bullshit and what's not bullshit. You have to know what matters. And on the topics that matter, just because Tucker Carlson or Anderson Cooper or some talking head said it doesn't mean it's true. Because like I said, Fox and CNN, they're propaganda. It's the propaganda companies, media propaganda. Now, at my gym, it kills me. It's the only time I ever see Fox News or CNN. They have them both up as they should. Both sides got to get equal sides of the bullshit. And it's nonsense because everything is always negative. I'm a positive person, man. I wrote PRS, positivity, resilience, support. Positivity is a huge part of my life. From your day to day to just framing things positively. Yeah, it sucks that it happened, but man, I'm still alive today. It's okay. I'll be okay. I'm I'm aware that these are propaganda machines. They're using fear tactics. They're seeking power and control. And they're always pointing fingers. Everybody's always pointing fingers nowadays. Oh, it's their fault. It's their fault. No, 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 no. How about you take responsibility, man? I've had things go wrong in my life and it was my fault. Nobody else to blame. Stop looking for things and people and other politics and anything else to blame. You're always to blame for anything that happens to you. And maybe you're unlucky if you're walking along the road and a car hits you. You know, that's not you can't really control that, but you shouldn't be worrying about that. You should be worrying about putting one foot in front of the other. What I see through media and through social media, especially, is that people are so quick to judge and so quick to jump into something that they don't know anything about. First off, something, and they'll watch a 20-second video and think they're informed. Um, and it's craziness because so much of it is clipped and phrased, and the narrative is written to scare you and freak you out and be like, oh, what do I have to do to get this to change? First of all, it's probably not as bad as you think. It's not as bad as you think. In fact, most for most people on planet Earth, life has improved in the last 50, 60, 70 years. In fact, from 1950, over 50% of the world is in extreme poverty. There's always been bad things happening. That extreme poverty rate, which is categorized as less than $1.90 a day, has dropped to under 10% in 70 years. So progress is always being made. And it's never as bad as what it looks like on social media. It's propaganda, it's fear, it's trying to get you to click, it's trying to get your attention, it's trying to control you. There's all these things everywhere that you could focus and care about. You ever look through Instagram stories? Man, here's this cause and this cause and this cause. Man, I'm for helping people. I'm not for helping people. But at my core, I'm an individualist. I believe that everything should empower the individual to make individual decisions that will benefit them. At the end of the day, many people are going to be making decisions that will benefit them and their loved ones and their closest friends and their closest kin. So if everybody's doing their best and putting forward their best effort and helping those nearby around them, will that not help the entire world? I think yes. You know, it's decentralized progress, I suppose. The best way to change the world is to focus on yourself and those around you. And this is a direct opposition to government control and governments and large groups of people making decisions for people. As I said, I'm an individualist, and everyone should be able to make their own decisions. They should be able to look at Look at the data, look at whatever they're looking at, and make a decision that is best for them and the people around them. Man, there's clearly things that are right, and there are things that are clearly wrong. It's up to each individual to make those decisions. Only discussion about our differences. I read something from one source. I think A is going to happen. Someone reads from another source, a different source. They think B is going to happen. Instead of being like, hey, fuck you, you think something different than me, I'm not going to talk to you. No, that's foolish. That's dangerous. That's how people die. Discourse is the only way to keep peace. And this is what this is about. Part of my big deal with media, and that I've talked about this, is the censorship. As uh, there are things that are clearly bad to say. There are things that are clearly good to say. Depends on interpretation. But I also believe that anything should be able to be said. Now, let's talk about the platform of Twitter. It's a great platform. I have learned so much from Twitter, the people that I follow on it. It is always, as they're a private company, it is always within their right to ban people. However, that sort of response is something that is patterned and mirrored throughout society, throughout media. I don't like what they're saying, so we're just gonna kind of just sweep it under the rug. It's really dangerous. The silence voices creates danger for all of us. Individual, each individual being able to say their each individual point of view and be able to calmly and confidently and intelligently and respectfully discuss with other people. Just because somebody has a different opinion than you doesn't mean they don't have a right to that opinion. It's insane to think otherwise. Everyone deserves their opinion. Like I said, there's a clear right and wrong. Like saying something very racist is wrong. And if someone chooses to say that, they should be punished for that. However, the rhetoric, and this is not just that, this is for anything. The rhetoric of saying you can't say that is so dangerous. Talk about cancel culture here. Talked a little bit about how, people argue and they say bad things. Cancel culture is a forever hungry beast. It will never be happy. As people, get canceled, as you say, they don't have a voice. People determine the people, which I am, power to the people. It's a bunch of individuals making that decision. However, I think they're just wrong because saying the words you don't have a right to that opinion creates it's gonna piss the other person off. it's gonna make their voice silenced. Where the proper way to handle it is to say, okay, yeah, you might think that. This is what I think. This is why you're wrong. And let's talk about it so we can come to a conclusion that will benefit everyone. That is the idea of discourse. And censorship hampers discourse. Now, talk about the United States, the land of the free, or so they say. That's what has made America great. Freedom. That's it. Freedom, liberty, justice, and being able to do what you want, being able to say what you want. There are people in other countries who do not have the same freedoms that we are. So that we are so blessed to have. It doesn't matter what you look like in the United States. It doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, if you're Asian, if you're Hispanic. It doesn't fucking matter. You have a voice. You can use it. You can say what you want, man. Not everybody has that blessing. Like, there's people. I don't know if anybody's who's listening to me. Listen to Joe Rogan, possibly. He had someone on Yumi Park. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. She's a North Korean defector, and she tells stories where they don't have they don't show the maps of the rest of the world. They don't have internet there. They have no word for I. It's always we. It's 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 downright evil. Totalitarianism, authoritarian, communism, socialism. When you have a few people making decisions for everyone, it does not work. Free market, capitalism, freedom, liberty, the founding ideas that the founding fathers of the United States wrote: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The ability, if you so choose, to go out and build your own house on your own land, or if you want to go hang out in the city and get an apartment, or if you want to road trip, or if you want to fly a flag, or if you want to get 60 of your buddies together and have a concert, you can. Has it always been perfect? Fuck no. Is the world perfect? Hell no, man. However, the United States, I can confidently say, is still the greatest country in the United States. In the world. I misspoke. It shouldn't work having so many people from so many different backgrounds. But the thing that keeps it alive is the freedom. Freedom is American. It really is. And it seems like we're starting to lose it a little bit. These lockdowns with censorship, with people saying, "Oh, you don't have the ability or the right to say that." No, 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 no. Disagree with you. I'm still optimistic about the future. Don't don't get me wrong. But this is necessary to say, man. I see what's going on. I see it. It's pro freedom versus pro tyranny. I want the freedom and the choice to be able to talk about it. And that's what I'm saying. If anybody out there hears anything that I say in this or ever, and they want to disagree, they want to talk about it, I'm all ears, man. Let's talk about it. Be respectful, be intelligent. That's what discourse is about. It's about saying, okay, this is what you think. This is what I think. How can we best? We can agree to disagree. We can come up with a greater solution. We can, you can come up with a better idea when you talk about things that you disagree with. It expands your mind. It expands your mind, man. The world, looking back through media, they don't want any of this that I'm saying to be said. It's about hysteria. It's about, you know, leading people to do sinister things. It's about inspiring inspiring chaos through fear. Ooh, here's something that bad happened with someone that you disagree with. Here's why you should hate them, and here's why all of your friends should hate them. Nah, man. Don't silence. Don't silence anyone. If somebody wants to come on somewhere and say some dumb shit that everybody hates, something bad, it's up to you to interpret what bad is. Somebody says something bad, let them say it and let them be punished for saying it. But don't tell them that they can't say it in the first place. Changing the language is another thing that I want to bring up real quick. I've told everyone, read George Orwell's book 1984 because it is happening right now. They had an idea. There's a concept in that book called doublespeak, changing the language, dictating what people can and can't say, changing the language. What do I mean by that? I mean like that park, no, Yomi Park. They don't have a word for I. They don't have a word for love. They don't have a word for freedom in North Korea. And yet people who can say I and love and freedom, I love freedom in the United States, still complain about all the ways that we've been so evil and so oppressed. You don't know what oppression is. Have you ever read the Gulag Archipelago? Details horrible things. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I learned about that from Jordan Peterson. Shout out. If you study history, once people start to take control of larger groups, currently going on in North Korea, it happened in Soviet Union in the 1900s, in China in the 1900s. Oppression, censorship, use of media. This is what you should believe. This is what you should think. We know what's best for you. Follow us. Oh man, think for yourself. Read history. Read history. Internal repression should always be resisted. If a government is telling you they want you to do something and they're threatening force, that's too far. Especially in a free country like the United States. It's always a fight against tyranny. It's why the Second Amendment exists. Read it. It literally, let me pull up the specific wording of the Second Amendment here. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Necessary to keep a free state. When the government decides that it wants to come and take your house and all of your possessions, you can shoot back. That's what the Second Amendment is for. Now, you don't want to shoot back. Violence is never the option. It's always the last option. You can talk about it. You can say, "Hey, man, it's like you're in a bar and somebody comes up and they want for some reason they have a little beef with you." No, knowing how to fight is okay, but fighting is not the first option. Let's talk about it. Sure, fella. Why do you want to kick my ass? Is it something I said? Is it something I think? Is it how I look? You know, it's the last option. in order to continue all of this, you got to keep looking on the bright side, man. Now, look up history. Look up the Rwandan genocide. Look up what happened in Mao's China in the 1900s. Look up the Gulag Archipelago. Horrible internal repression. People being brutally treated and killed and starved to death because of collectivist and socialist and communist ideas. The opposite of what the United States is. Be pro freedom, not pro tyranny. Now, all of this, man, I wrote PRS, like I said, positivity, resilience, support, positive person. So how can we put all of this in a positive light? First off, don't get sucked in. Think about the internet, future of the internet, the way I look at it. Creators and consumers. Don't consume all the time. Create something. That's what I'm doing with the Hzrd Podcast. There's going to be producers. There's going to be products. There's going to be people who are selling. There's going to be people who are creating, who are on one side, freedom, capitalism, liberty. I'm not necessarily saying that creators are capitalists. But man, if you are creating a product in order to sell it, you're going to want to be able to sell it, right? Capitalism. Consumers, you're taking the resources, you're consuming, you're watching TikToks, and you're always looking at other people's tweets and stuff. Man, say something of your own. Create your own thing. Creating your own thing is good. It's important. It's not bad to consume, man, but it's got to be in moderation, in balance, in harmony with what you're producing and what you need to be doing each and every day. Now, overall, to get away from all of this, get away from your phone and your computer and your screens and the media and everything that they want to tell you and make you believe, go into nature. Go outside, take a breath of fresh air, go for a hike, go for a walk on the beach. Put your phone, leave it at home, put it in your pocket, zip the pocket up, forget about your phone. It doesn't exist. Taking the time away from the online world and the absolute insanity that always happens on it every day and never stops, it's going to be absolute paramount to a lot of people's sanity. Truly believe this. There's a lot of people who are going to go crazy, and I already have, and will be, and in the future will be going crazy because they just consume so much. All they see and hear is bad, negative, fear porn from the propaganda machines. And I know I sound crazy in terms of, I'm not trying to scare people myself. I'm just trying to be aware. Be aware of what's going on. Because I have read the history. I've looked this up, man. You know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. Something else I would encourage people to do to step away is setting a timer for 30 minutes. Seems like a long time until it's not. 30 minutes, write down with a notebook. Sit down with a notebook and you just write whatever the hell comes to mind. Be so honest with yourself that you have to read it back and be like, oh shit, man. I think you're onto something here. Honesty is always the best policy. And it's along with discourse and honesty. Tell people what you think. This is what I believe. How are you going to respond? What do you have to say? What do you have to contribute to what I say? It's true. And when you're going with yourself, write. It's going to make you figure out your own truths. You don't have to write the whole time of the 30 minutes. You can sit there, you can sip your coffee a little bit, you can just kind of sit and just be. But as soon as you have something to say, you write it down and be honest. and sit often. You know, this is a practice that I started journaling when I was in middle school, and then I stopped it by like probably eighth grade. Um, Figured it was something that was kind of lame to do, honestly, and I wish I hadn't. It would have been cool to see a further progression. And I didn't really start. I suppose I've done two notebooks in the last 2.5 years, I suppose, 2 years, I guess. Um, I started in, I think it was September of 2019, and that book I didn't write a ton. I finished that 23rd of last month of July 2021, and now I'm almost written an entire book, another one. Um, just nope, like journal book, you know what I mean? Just writing random whatever. Um, and since the 23rd, and it's now August 10th where I'm recording this, it's incredible because the amount of like truth that you see when you write for yourself is so, it's eye opening, and it makes you like, man, once you are honest and once you put out your truth and figure out your truth, there's nothing that can stop you, man. Ignore all the bullshit. Ignore all of the craziness in the world. You have to be informed. You have to pay attention to what's going on, but focus on you. Focus on the individual. Focus on what you can do today that makes you better than yesterday. Media can be a tool for good. I didn't really highlight a ton of the good parts of media, honestly. You can share with your friends. You are the ability that anyone in the world could start a podcast with an internet connection, and like a video camera, man. Like, what a great world we live in. But when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel crazy, when you feel just like, man, all this just it's getting to me, take a step back, write, go into nature, spend time with you, focus on you. Because at the end of the day, you focus on you and your own freedom, everything's going to be, it's all going to take care of itself. Focus on yourself, focus on the betterment of yourself and others, those around you, your family members, those in direct relation and physical proximity to you. Because often their best interest is going to be your best interest when you're in close physical proximity. Anyway, focus on you, do your best, keep growing. I appreciate you listening to this episode of the Hzrd Podcast. My name is Alex Sherrill. If you're curious about more, you can find me on YouTube, Hzrd Central. The link will be in the description. I also am over on Twitter at AlexHzrd52. That is AlexHzrd52. Same thing on Instagram. I have some other pages on there. Hzrd Photo, DJ Hzrd. I do DJ as well. And then, of course, Hzrd Podcast. Follow me on Twitter. That's the main thing. At AlexHzrd52. AlexHzrd52. My name is Alex Sherrill. I appreciate you listening. This has been the Hzrd Podcast. Have a great evening.